Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today and welcome to this session of Media and Entertainment, accelerating next generation direct-to-consumer experiences. My name is Gil Yanku and I'm a Senior Solutions Architect here at AWS. Joining me today for this session are our friends at Peacock, Keith Davidson, Director of Global OTT, and Colin Ines, Head of Group Reliability Engineering. So, a bit about the agenda for today. I'm going to go over how direct-to-consumer landscape is evolving. We're then going to see how our customers use AWS to accelerate development. We'll have a few examples of how AWS can help you in your direct-to-consumer endeavors. And the majority of this session will focus on the successful launch of Peacock, NBCUniversal's premium ad-supported streaming service. So what are we seeing in the direct-to-consumer landscape? Well, first of all, we see there's an ongoing demand for content, and this is something that's been going on for quite some time. Consumers today also have the ability to shift platforms much faster than before. So creating new and engaging content is even more important for consumer retention. We see media companies who are experienced with content distribution and also new service providers that have just started exploring the uses of media. And in both cases, viewers' expectations are pretty high. Everyone today now expects to be able to get their content anytime, anywhere, and on any device. Now, the flip side to this is that it's much easier today to experiment with new technologies. It's estimated that the cost per channel has been reduced by 97% over the past 20 years. This means that you can test new ideas quickly, tear it down, make changes, and test it again. And by repeating this process, you can launch new features and innovate much faster than before. So overall, the time it takes from ideation to execution has been reduced significantly. What we're also seeing is that workforce is now more global and diverse, and something that certainly has been accelerated this year is the ability to work remote. Some teams adopted cloud quickly this year in order to be able to work remote. They use managed services like workspaces and other VDI solutions from our partners. And we also saw remote teams doing work that just wasn't possible a year ago. Things like content creation, video editing, video processing. This is the kind of work you need to do only in your powerful machines at your workplace. So all in all, the increased demand for content, the ability to experiment easily, and cloud migrations in general really drove our customers to innovate faster. Now let's see what some of our customers are doing on AWS. Orange Theory Fitness is a boutique fitness franchise with over 1,200 studios across the world. When COVID-19 hit and shutdown started, they quickly decided they had to pivot to an online virtual experience. They couldn't find the right solution that could be implemented quickly and at scale. So what they realized is that also they don't have the time to build a full video pipeline from scratch, and this also requires some very specific video expertise they didn't have at hand. With AWS Amplify Video, they were able to deploy and launch a serverless video on-demand infrastructure. This took care of video ingest, processing, encoding, and delivery. Their developers were able to start testing video integration within an hour, something they thought would take them probably a week. Amplify Video is an open source plugin. It puts fully managed video pipelines directly at the hands of developers. By answering a few questions on a CLI, you can spin up end-to-end video, VOD, and live streaming infrastructure. iHeartRadio is an audio streaming service that reaches tens of millions of users every month. And with tens of thousands of new registrations every day, they were looking for a way to personalize recommendations for new signups immediately after their first login. What they had was the basic user information and some of the customer's preferences. However, from years of experience, they knew that people categorize music differently from each other. And that doesn't necessarily match what iHeartRadio categories are. This can be pretty much of a subjective matter, as you might imagine. Based on users' behavior, they have learned over the years, and new sign-up information like preferences and demographics, they were able to use Amazon SageMaker to produce new recommendations for users. And in an A/B testing, the new recommendations model had an 8.7% higher click-through rate. so first-time users had a more engaging and relevant experience. SageMaker is a fully managed service that helps prepare, build, train, and deploy machine learning models. It removes the heavy lifting from your machine learning framework. So now let's talk about how AWS can help you accelerate your direct-to-consumer development. These are the main areas where we see our customers focus. They're obviously thinking about innovation and how to speed up R&D process and time to market. They're looking into how to deliver and express their own brand through the viewing experience. And they are more and more thinking about how to personalize the experience to each consumer so they can drive more engagement, add more value to the customer, and potentially add some new monetization opportunities. Now let's go a bit into specifics around each of these topics and see where AWS can assist. In order to accelerate innovation, our customers use AWS programs, ProServe, and our partners. This allows them to focus on their core business instead of building from scratch workflows that others have already built and perfected. Another great way to kickstart a new media workflow, for example, is our media and entertainment solutions. These are pre-built solutions, reference architectures, if you will, that can be deployed in your AWS account. They are a great starter kits for things like VOD, live streaming, automated subtitling, and metadata tagging. They are all open source, infrastructure as a code, and you can take whatever parts of that suits you. You can also use AWS managed services like Amplify and SageMaker I've mentioned earlier, or use our media services to build your own video pipelines. And there are other managed services for analytics, databases, machine learning, and others. So how to delight our customers? We do that by creating new video experiences, something that is unique to our brand. We see our customers use machine learning to test out new ideas on how to keep viewers engaged. Some new business models can also attract more viewers, like free ad-supported offers. And naturally, with some high-end platforms, we also want to make sure we have pristine video quality and delivery. And probably the area where our customers spend most of their time on is how do I drive engagement? How do I keep my audience engaged? I have the content, I have delivery methods. How do I keep them on my platform? Well, first thing is you need to understand who your viewers are, what they watch, and what your core fans spend most of their time on. We see companies develop different profiles of viewers. They can offer different tiers of service or even unreleased previews and footage for superfans. You can keep your audience engaged with a good recommendation engine like we've seen earlier. And you can also personalize communication with your customers. For example, a push notification. How was the latest episode of Saved by the Bell? Do you want to watch more Battlestar Galactica? And finally, how do you monetize on that content? You have a streaming platform, you have content, you have your customer engaged. How do you monetize on that? There are services that offer subscription, some are free with ads, and some offer a mix of both. And when developing your ad placements, you want to make sure to partner with the right advertising platforms. Partners that will cater personalized and localized ads for your viewers, not generic ads that might not be relevant. And this is something that will certainly help you drive ad revenue, but can also be a more pleasant experience for your viewers. You can also diversify your ad opportunities with Amazon Publisher Services, or APS, which can connect you to Amazon's vast ad marketplace. We feel very confident about media and entertainment workloads on AWS. And more than anything, I think this is a testament to our customers. Over 500 million subscribers are streaming media content powered by AWS. So really, any media and entertainment workloads you might be thinking of, rest assured there are many ways we can assist you with that. And now let's hear from Peacock.
This is Peacock.
Peacock, baby!
It's streaming, and it's free. E.T., free.
Lebowski.
Free. Woo! Make Way for Naughty? We made it free.
Get in.
Whether it's apocalyptic, prehistoric, in-depth,
Somebody's gotta pay.
You're wrong.
or outer space.
It's free. Roger that.
Bingy, cringy, guilty, reality?
Drama.
Free, 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 free.
For free?
Yes.
Is it no money?
Yes.
Free to fall in love. Free to fall in
Like.
or just fall. Awkward. Free nope. Free yep.
All right.
Free to judge that, this, them. Free to upsell, sit down, stand up, blow up. So if you want to pawn it, store it, throw it, play it, or say it.
Did you say it?
Here's where you can stream it for free.
Very nice. It's free.
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 Free. And that's why you can't not watch.
I don't buy it. Well, you're going to get it for free.
Hi, my name is Keith Davison. I'm responsible for the global OTT platforms which supply Peacock and drive the overall service. This service is, as Gil has mentioned, is a premium service which has got an ad-free tier which provides streaming to our customers in the United States for NBCUniversal. The service is based on providing premium content with a TV experience across the internet. Overall, after releasing the service, which was middle of this year, we have actually grown to almost 26 million plus sign-ups on the service in that time frame. Overall, the service is intended to be aimed at people using various different devices, everything from iPads, iPhones, all the way through to large format screen devices. So we have to emulate the experience which people expect on that, and provide the quality of content that they would be looking for as if they were watching the TV. So as part of deploying this, NBCUniversal engaged with a number of teams across the company and asked us how fast could we stand up this service. So we started this process of creating Peacock just over 1 year, just over 1.5 years ago. And that was from the inception stage all the way through to full production in the middle of this year. So the only way we could actually achieve that was actually by deploying it to the cloud. So within our current set of partners, AWS was one of our primary cloud providers, and we engaged with them so we could accelerate the deployment of our service across into the United States. The teams that actually build this platform are based in Europe. We are based out of the UK primarily, and based out of Lisbon in Portugal. So the entire team deployed to the cloud from those remote locations. That, as I mentioned, was from inception only 1.5 years ago. So we took an entire service, entire cloud-based, an entire on-premise-based service, and transitioned it to the cloud and deployed it into multiple availability zones, multiple regions, and also all the servers were aimed to be independently scalable. So the reason we could do this so fast was, one, we were able to work with Amazon and actually build the cloud capabilities straight off. But we'd also, for a number of years, been working with Amazon, with other partners, to ensure that our services were infrastructure agnostic. And that was one of our primary principles. So this allowed us to take all of that work we had done and apply it, although in very aggressive timeframes. Yeah, and those end dates, which were basically April of this year and also July of this year, were the two main launch points we had. Our entire platform had to be in place, running, highly available, with it up to the April point. And we actually achieved that with nothing significant happening at all when we actually went to launch. The services you can see as we're showing, they're very complex. They cover a number of areas. As we say, our service is both ad supported as well as premium with less ads in it. So we have in multiple services, we play out ads, put it into the streams, personalize the content so that it actually delivers the right content to the right customers and give them the best experience possible. Those systems, as I mentioned, are deployed multiple times. So although here we represent 2 regions, we actually deployed it probably close to 8 times in that time frame. And that meant building everything from scratch, all the way up automated from network definitions, account definitions within AWS, everything totally automated from the base right the way through to the deployment of the clients. And again, this was one of our engineering principles that we adopted as we built up our entire setup and configuration. it was quite a monumental effort to actually achieve this, and all of the teams achieved it in the end. So we built up the environment, we deployed all our services, we deployed all of the various clients, made them available to customers across multiple different devices within that 1 year time frame. And then we had to deal with what would actually the customers be doing. So this was different to our services we run within Europe, where we had a track record, where in the United States, we were going from 0 to full customer utilization. Now, one of the things which in our service, which is different to a lot of others, is we have to deal with live events as well as streaming VOD, movies, etc. And when you're dealing with a live event, the traffic comes along at very, very fast paces. So over the space of a few minutes, you can go from very low volumes to extremely high volumes. And yeah, the system has to be able to cope with that. And again, this was one of the reasons why we chose to partner with somebody like Amazon, because we could have a service which could handle that kind of scale and that kind of demand on that short time frame. So although we experienced this in Europe, we had to learn how the customers would behave within the US and actually build up a profile, which allowed us to actually design the systems and implement them to handle this kind of scale for live events. On top of that peak viewing, which comes along every time a sporting event or something like that happens, we also have the day one scenario, which was going from 0. We had no customer base, unlike our European deployments. Here we had to go from 0. That meant working with Amazon, working with our professional services, etc., to ensure that we could go from 0 and go up to high numbers of people signing up, signing in, and streaming. And as you can see, as customers came on day one, we started seeing massive spikes as we entered into particularly the prime time of the viewing day, and people were signing up, signing in, and actually starting to stream videos. And as this as platform keeps on building, these efforts continue. So again, partnering with somebody like AWS allowed us to actually do this, allowed us to build this scale, test to this scale, and ensure that our platforms were deployed in what we feel was a record time frame from basically inception to full deployment within the space of 1 year. And I think now we'll probably talk a little bit more about some of the challenges which were actually within that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Keith. This was really great. Then this is incredible what you've achieved in such a short time. And thanks again, Keith and Colin, for joining us today. So hearing your story about the 1 year goal to launch, what were your thoughts around building from scratch versus reusing some of the existing infrastructure you had?
Yeah. Hi, Gil. Thanks for the question. As Keith had mentioned previously, from the inception of the plan to the actual delivery of the service, we had around 13 months. So we knew we had to deliver something very quickly. Our existing infrastructure was probably about 60% on-prem and 40% AWS. But our on-prem kit over the years has built up a lot of tech debt, etc. So it wasn't really suitable for the type of service we were trying to build. We were trying to build a service that was reliable, that was very scalable, and also it was important to us to give a consistent developer experience. So if a developer was working, anywhere a developer was working, you had the same pipelines, the same methods of deployment, etc. So we made a decision very early on, again, Keith referred to engineering principles. One of our engineering principles was this would be a greenfield site. We would start completely from scratch. That also gave us the added advantage of that we couldn't impact anything else in Sky. We would be completely separate, and we'd be able to put into practice a lot of the things we've been doing over the last few years to automate a service.
One of the key things this actually gave us a real opportunity, and we do probably over-mention the engineering principles, but it did give us a real opportunity to actually test out the principles we'd been applying and we'd been embedding on all the development teams. Keep in mind, this was close to 1,000 engineers working on this project as we went through it. And what we applying those principles, ensuring we had them everywhere, that allowed us to do this move and basically go 100% into the cloud and into the AWS setup was a key part of doing that. So again, this gave us that ideal opportunity, which doesn't often come along within our careers, where we could go greenfield, brand new, into a setup where we could get everything right from the very beginning done the way we wanted to do it. And we actually managed to do that right from the get-go. As I mentioned, everything, even from the account creation all the way up, was test-driven, implemented through automation, and be able to validate. And that common experience, which Colin mentioned, allowed us to bring all the development teams on the platform together to focus in on delivering the experience and the platform which the business was expecting us to do, and in a very agile manner.
Okay. And you talked about scale, which was one of your main reasons to moving all in the cloud. So what kind of scale were you expecting? And I remember just when you were about to launch, then COVID hits, and did that change the expectations for scale?
Yes, scale was one of what we thought was going to be the biggest challenge. Was that 0 day, the unknown. We didn't know what the customer base was going to be. We didn't know how fast it was going to pick up. How many, for example, how many sign-ins, sign-ups are going to happen day one, within the first hour, within the first few minutes. There was no history. Whereas when we worked in Europe and we worked with our existing systems, it'd been built up over time. It had gradually built its customer base. We were able to adapt to that, etc. So being able to go onto a platform and a service like Amazon, where we could actually anticipate that scale and be ready for it, that's what allowed us to do it. Now, there's obviously a lot more work went into that to ensure that we had the right performance, etc., etc. But that was really what we did, and we built a set of estimated guesswork. Is probably educated guesswork is probably the right way to phrase it. Built that up, preparation, ran through multiple scenarios to make sure that we were in the right way, and actually went through it. And yeah, that was what we thought was our biggest challenge until the pandemic came across, and that gave us a even bigger challenge. But we hit the launch date, and we knew it was not going to change. We knew it wasn't going to move, and we just kept on going towards it, and that's where we went to.
The launch itself was kind of split into two. We launched in April to Comcast customers only. Comcast customer base is pretty huge as it is. And then we launched in July to anybody, I guess, with a North American IP address. Plus the complication you add on top of that is there is a free tier in there, which means you've got a lot of content out there that anybody can access just with an email address. So it was difficult planning for the scale, but we are pretty obsessive over performance engineering. We've got many years of handling big events, things like Game of Thrones and English Premier League football, has given us quite a mature performance team. As Keith said, first of all, it was a little bit of guesswork, but based on our previous endeavours, we were able to look at what customer traffic would probably look like. But the April launch was a really good indicator for us. It showed us how our customers behave and how they were likely to behave going forward. So it let us build up an even better profile. On the big launch day in July, obviously there's still an element of nerves because there is that first time a customer is going to search, first time a customer is going to get a player token, and there's all these firsts. But we did, I think, enough testing to make sure that was successful, and obviously we were very pleased to get through both launches unscathed, so to speak.
And can you talk a bit about the user experience? You mentioned earlier, and as we know, this is both a live, linear, and VOD experience. So how did you kind of combine the both into what is Peacock today?
That's an interesting question there, Gil. When we come to user experience, one of the things which we were aiming for with Peacock was to really capture this idea of the TV viewing experience. So from a customer's perspective, when they came into the app, particularly on the large screens, when you're streaming to either Roku devices or to X1 devices, etc., that you gave the user the experience they would expect from a television, from an entertainment system in their living room. So that involved, streaming streaming content as people came in. So those active, the screen was active as the customer came and started up, but also then overlaying all of the experiences you can benefit or augment that with, because you're going over the internet and you can supply it as part of the streaming service. So a lot of work went into that with the user experience teams, making sure that experience really captivated and engaged the customer. That was the paramount thing for the organization. And part of that is also that we use the customer's behavior and what they're viewing to actually really personalize the service. And as you can see with a lot of online services, you look to try and present the content the customer's looking for, present it in the right way for their tastes, their behaviors, etc. And we've spent a lot of time in the systems developing these kind of algorithms, AI, etc., machine learning, to actually build that into the product. And this is part and parcel of the user experience, is really getting an engaged customer, making sure that you're providing them the content they wish to see, and prompt them into content we believe they would be primarily interested in.
And just to add to that, from I guess a platform or got my reliability hat on, the other important thing from us, from a user experience, is the customer always gets what they ask for. I guess a phrase we use quite a lot is failing in favour of the customer. If there is some sort of failure on our platform, we like to think we've built in enough contingencies, circuit breakers, etc., that these failures will be visible to the customer. So if they're pressing play and something fails on our side, we'll still be able to play out, etc. So we've spent, again, a long time in our previous endeavours in Europe working on that, and I think that shows an experience in Peacock.
Yeah, I think this is a recurring theme across many of our customers today. The user experience, how to tailor that to customers, how to make sure they're fully engaged and they're, getting what they're looking for. And you mentioned you had almost 1,000 engineers across London, New York, Portugal, and all of them were working on Peacock across the pond. How was that to collaborate across multiple time zones?
So I suppose the first one was there was a lot of commuting between London and New York. That was as the project kicked up and all the way through the project. There was a lot of time spent building those direct relationships. Luckily, though, a lot of them were because of working with companies which are international and have presence everywhere. We already had a lot of pre-established relationships with companies such as AWS, etc., where we could actually leverage that from Europe, extend it into the US, and then also build on the relationships which organizations had with both NBCU and Comcast. I think the key thing for us, though, was really also bringing together the parts of the organization. So with NBC, Comcast, and Sky in Europe, we were leveraging elements out of all of those organizations. And it meant a lot of times working with colleagues, looking for the best solutions in different areas and building it up. But at the beginning, it was a lot of travel to New York, meetings back and forward between the two areas. Luckily, it was only the flight between New York and not all the way out to California. But it was a lot of time in airports, a lot of time in conference calls and video calls, which we're all becoming incredibly used to right now.
So working with our colleague, I found the time difference between the UK and New York a bit of a challenge at first. The big positive out of it for me was working with our colleagues in NBC. NBC already had a number of OTT streaming services and had been on a lot of the same journeys that we'd been on over the last few years. So it was good to speak to people with similar experiences and another experience that we might not have had. And I think the vice versa was the same. I guess the main challenge for us was that the operation is based in Connecticut, and a lot of the engineering resource was based in London. I guess we approach these problems the same way we approach our technology problems. We look to automate things. So whether it's through instant management and alert creation and communication channel creation and things like that, we like to do that all in an automated fashion. So we're giving the information to the operation team in the US at the same time as the engineers get it in the UK. So, yeah.
Finally, I remember being there in London when you're almost about to launch, and all the plans for launch day were already set, and then all the travel restrictions started. Can you tell us how did COVID affect your launch day plans? I'm sure it threw everything off.
Yeah, I mean, COVID's affected everyone very badly this year, and we obviously didn't escape that. New York and London were on kind of similar trajectories, I think, from a timescale point of view. As I mentioned, we were due to launch in April, so we were still over in New York in late February and March. And then we started to hear noise of travel bans and things locking down. Our original plan was we knew this would be, I guess, a week-long exercise to launch Peacock. It wasn't just a launch day. There was the build-up. Then there was the monitoring the service after it went live. For kind of quality of life reasons, we thought it better to put everyone in the same time zone. And we have a lovely purpose-built facility for NBC out in Connecticut that a lot of the staff were already based in. So we were going to co-locate in Connecticut. And actually a number of our suppliers, including AWS, were due to be there as well. We then got word that we could no longer travel to the US. So the plan shifted a little. And we decided to set up war rooms in Connecticut and in London. After we finished the planning for that, we then got told both offices, again in eerily similar amount of times on different sides of the Atlantic, both got shut down. So this put us to a completely remote setup with no one in any of the offices. This did present challenges, but I have to say the teams did not miss a beat. It really surprised me how much everyone rose to the challenge. It was, everyone just made themselves available. We worked very long hours and we got through it. And I was so proud of what both teams achieved. We learned a lot from what happened in April. And again, we put similar practices in place in July. And July was actually pretty seamless again. I think, lessons learned. We did the whole thing remotely. And I think I mentioned earlier, but it's something that we're pretty proud of, that we managed to launch the service on both occasions with completely no customer-affecting incidents.
Yeah. All I can add to what Colin said was that, it was amazing how well the teams actually responded to this. If you imagine, we went from, literally just before the first launch to, you can't travel, to then you can't even be in the office. Everyone transitioned to remote. All the developers went for remote. One of the key things to remember in a lot of what we do is we are a DevOps organization. So when our developers are on call, our developers respond to incidents. They are part and parcel of the setup, the way the services are activated, how they're going. So we went from a number of developers, a number of people in the key teams going to be flying out, to them all actually ending up having to work from home remotely from their own personal desktops. They're taking their equipment home, etc. And this was right across the board. As you said, hundreds and hundreds of engineers and people involved in this process. So they all switched to that. And as Colin said, didn't even miss a heartbeat. I'm still to this day astounded by the level of dedication our team showed, a level of dedication our partners such as AWS showed, and the fact that we released both times in April and then in July without any significant issues at all.
Colin, Keith, thank you. We always love a great and successful launch. It was great having you today, and it was certainly a pleasure to work with you on this project and the Peacock launch. And for everyone watching, thank you for joining us today.